You're listening to Sorainen Public Procurement Academy. Stay tuned.
Welcome to this session of the Public Procurement Academy. I am Katrina from the Sorainen office in Latvia, and I will be talking to you today about how to be successful in your procurements in Latvia. The aim of this session is to introduce you to the basics of how public procurements occur in Latvia and how you could participate in them. In this session, we will cover the topics of where you can find information on planned or published tenders in Latvia, as well as how you can submit a bid in Latvia. So, on the first matter, public procurement plans are published by contracting authorities already well in advance. They have an obligation to create their plan for the upcoming year within a month from approving their yearly budget. So they will publish their procurement plan in their websites, as well as in specific sites that are used in general when procuring. So the first site that you can also find these public procurement plans in is the electronic procurement system, which you will also find on the screen. In this system, you can search in all sorts of ways and categories what plans certain contracting authorities already have made for the coming year, in which quarter, in which type of area, and all sorts of details that they have already published. So you can already in advance prepare for what is to come for the year and plan accordingly when you wish to participate in those tenders when they will be once published. The contracting authorities also conduct market consultations in advance of their procurements. Not in all cases, but if they do consider it necessary. The consultations essentially are a chance for the contracting authority to talk to the economic operators in the market and consider what their plans are, if their plans, their qualifications, the technical requirements make sense for the economic operators, and also a chance for the contracting authority to find out if there even is competition, if there are economic operators who would be willing to participate, and so better understand if their plans for the year make sense and maybe something should be changed and the documents should be amended or somehow else they should change their plans. So there are two types of market consultations. First of all, they can make a very specific type of market consultation where they have to publish well in advance an open call for a consultation and have a set time frame within which they have to allow the economic operators to put forward their suggestions. But there is also a more general idea of a market consultation which has less restrictions, and therefore it is not possible for you to know all of the market consultations that are occurring in Latvia. Sometimes they will be very informal and you might be even contacted directly, not through any sort of public call for a consultation. So this will greatly differ. But once again, many of these market consultations will be publicly notified in the same electronic procurement system, as well as in the websites of the specific contracting authorities. So there you will also be able to see and participate in advance and offer your thoughts on our procurement and what the current state of the procurement is. Once the contracting authority is ready to publish its tender, you will find the contracting notices for its tenders in multiple places. First of all, the Procurement Monitoring Bureau holds the entire list of all procurements that are published. And in its webpage, you can also search all of these contract notices, as well as all sorts of other notices that might occur during a procurement. Additionally, the electronic procurement system, which we spoke of before, also holds information about contract notices, and it will provide more detailed information about the tender. So in the Procurement Monitoring Bureau's website, there will be general information about the tender, and it will include a link to the website in which there is more information, so to the electronic procurement system. And in this electronic procurement system, you will be able to find the tender documentation under the subsection of documents for the specific tender and download in it all of the procurement documents that are being publicized. Not all procurement documents will be public. It will depend on the type of procurement procedure, since there are more open procedures and more closed off procedures that might occur, but that will therefore depend on the specific procurement that you are looking at. If it is a more open procedure, you will then see all of the procurement documents, be able to acquaint yourself with how the procedure is to occur. You will be able to see the technical requirements, the qualification requirements, and so forth. The electronic procurement system will also include all further documents that might be made and publicized during the tender. So for instance, if there will be later down the line some questions that the economic operators ask from the contracting authority, these questions and their answers will be then published in this electronic information system. As well as eventually, if the tender concludes, it will have the decision of the final tender announcement. It will have the contract concluded between the winner of the tender and the contracting authority, and so forth. So this will be the place where you will be able to see everything important to you during the tender. Additionally, if the contract price exceeds EU thresholds, the contract notice will also be published in the Tender Electronics Daily website, which is called TED for short, on an EU level. So you can all in all see all sorts of contract notices in 3 websites for Latvia, on an EU level, if the price range is such, and also on the national level in the Procurement Monitoring Bureau's website, as well as the electronic procurement system. Each of these websites offers their own search criteria, how you can better look for contract notices. And for instance, the Procurement Monitoring Bureau's website also offers a machine-translated version in which you could also look for these contract notices automatically translated in English. This will be perhaps easier than in the electronic procurement system, which does not offer such an automatic translation. Nevertheless, all of these websites offer a range of criteria after which you can search the contract notices that interest you, be it by the type of procurement, by the contracting authority, by any keywords, all sorts of criteria you might choose to better dwindle out which contracts might interest you specifically. And also to note, the Procurement Monitoring Bureau's website also offers you the choice to look through not only contract notices, but choose other types of notices. So we previously spoke, for instance, of the procurement plans and also of market consultations. So those, for instance, would fall under the scope of planning notifications, which you can also then choose to look for separately. The same website is also the one in which you will see notifications of the tender results and see all sorts of complaints. So if you're interested to see if a specific tender has had a complaint lodged about it and what the results of that complaint would have been, then that is to be found also in the same website. The complaints will be publicly available for 3 years. So for older tenders, you might not be able to see the results of that complaint anymore, but for the last 3 years, you will be able to see the Procurement Monitoring Bureau's decision. So once you have found a tender you would like to participate in, you will most likely have to register in this electronic procurement system, since, as previously discussed, it holds all sorts of information about the procurement, but also this is the place where you will be able to submit your bid. There are also other ways of submitting bids, and it will depend on the tender. Sometimes the contracting authority requests that you submit your bid by sending it electronically to them, but most of the time it is going to be through this system. So in the electronic procurement system, you will be able to see all of the tender documentation, but there will be also some communications that occur between the contracting authority and the economic operators that will be outside of the system. So, for instance, there are various ways, various types of procurement. Some, as previously discussed, are more open, some are more closed. So those more closed tenders are ones in which the contracting authority speaks to the economic operators directly, and they will have perhaps negotiations and meetings that will not be made publicly available. So such information will not be published in the system. But once again, that will depend on the type of tender, and in open tenders, everything will mostly occur through the electronic procurement system. So what do you have to take into account when starting out working with this electronic procurement system? It has a help section that contains a more detailed guide on how to use it and what information it contains. Some of it is available in English. Not the best translation though, so be wary of that. But in any event, there is a basic set of information on how it works in English, and if you do speak Latvian, then there is also a wide variety of training videos on how exactly to work with the system. And in any event, you will also be able to contact the holders of this system directly if you have any questions, and they will help you to the best of their abilities. So the tender documents will generally be in Latvian. If you wish to participate from a country that does not speak Latvian, then you might have to contend with auto-translating the conditions of the tender if there are no translations already provided by the contracting authority. And in such cases, you do have to, of course, be wary of any potential differences that you have in your translation, since the Latvian language will prevail. So if there will be some sort of mistake in the translation, then the Latvian version of events will be the one that you have to contend yourself with. And try to acquaint yourself with all of the documents as soon as possible, since there are many questions that might arise during the process, and you will have a limited time to ask your questions to the contracting authority. So if it concerns any of the translations, of course, but also in essence about any of the tender documents, what the qualifications are, what the technical requirements are, any potentially misleading wordings that the contracting authority has used, you have a chance to ask your questions and even to suggest that they change something if you think that it is incorrect. But if you miss your deadline, then you will have to be stuck with the documentation as it is and with all of those qualifications and technical and fiscal requirements as they have been set in those papers. So be mindful, be quick about getting your first acquaintance with those documents, and set yourself some time to understand those requirements and start working on your tender, on your bid in a timely manner. As mentioned, you can register yourself in the electronic procurement system according to those informative resources that are available in this website. But to make it clear, there are two ways of doing it. If you are from Latvia, you will be able to simply self-register in this website. If you're not from Latvia, you will have to submit your application for registration directly to the State Regional Development Agency. There are English forms available for the registration. They are available in this electronic procurement system's webpage. You will have to fill them out and either submit them in paper form or you can submit them electronically signed. Also be mindful that in Latvia, a document is considered electronically signed if it has a qualified electronic signature and a qualified timestamp. In essence, these two categories are complicated to understand, but they can be found in EU websites which provide a detailed list of what service providers provide such secure electronic signatures. For instance, in the region, it is often used the Dokabit site. This is considered in Latvia as a proper electronic signature and will be accepted by all state entities. But this can be verified in any case. And also, once again, if you have any questions, you could also call the information services of the State Regional Development Agency and ask them questions, or ask questions to the electronic procurement systems contact services. So once you have submitted your registration documents to the agency, they will have 3 business days to review them, and if everything is in order, they will create an administrator's profile for you in the electronic procurement system, and you will receive your registration information in the email. Once registered there, you can manage your account, you can add other users, you can assign certain roles to the users. So for instance, the person who will be authorized to sign the bid, this can also be input through your administrator's access. And be mindful of who you add here, so that you are able to receive all the notifications, and don't add, for instance, an email you're not actively using. Or if any of your employees change, also change the access rights so that you always have your currently used email available for notices. If you will be late to notice some email that has come to your inbox about the procurement and its steps, you might miss some deadlines, and this will be irreversible. And to set yourself off on the best foot when preparing your tender, start in a timely manner. You can draft your documents and already publish them in the electronic procurement system in your profile as you are in progress. So do not leave it until the last minute. You can save your progress as you go. And if you are preparing the documents and you see that something is unclear, ask your questions to the contracting authority. You will have to submit everything usually in Latvian and have to translate all sorts of documents in Latvian. So be mindful of that as well when you're planning your time. Translations can, of course, take time after all. And your final bid will have to be submitted usually either electronically signed, or you can use the electronic procurement system. Once you have access to it and have your profile, you will be able to also, through this system, essentially sign your bid. So that is also a way of not having to go through the hassle of understanding if your documents are all properly signed according to the Latvian understanding of electronic signatures. As a note, in Latvia you are allowed to use the European Single Procurement Document, or ESPD for short. It is optional, so that is up to you if you choose to use it, and the contracting authorities will have to accept them if you do. The use of such an ESPD will allow you to have an easily understandable form for all sorts of confirmations, but otherwise the procurement documentation will usually have all sorts of forms already prepared in which you have to submit your bid and your qualifications, your technical offer, your financial offer, and so on. You will also potentially be asked to submit evidence of your qualifications and of your offer. So be mindful of the way documents must be provided here. You will have to certify, for instance, copies with, once again, those electronic signatures or through the electronic procurement system. And you will have to be diligent about having all documents properly formatted and signed once you are submitting them. So all in all, it is possible to participate in tenders in Latvia if you are not from Latvia. However, you will have some hurdles. Of course, the language barrier and having to submit documents in Latvian will impose some limitations, but it is quite possible, and there are also some limitations that you will have to bear in mind that are generally applicable in the EU from the directives on procurement and from the Latvian laws as well. So there are certain areas in which If you are not from an EU state or from the European Economic Area or from NATO or from the World Trade Organization, then you might encounter some restrictions. But those are usually clearly set out and mentioned in the procurement documentation, or at the very least referenced to the laws that are applicable and that will further explain what restrictions you might face. For more information about the life after submitting your bid, please look at our other Procurement Academy's videos, and you may also contact us if you have any more questions.